Welcome. We're back with Token Blacks in Cinema. I am Donna. This is Steven.
Hola.
Steven, how are you?
I am well. I'm well.
I'm well. So I'm well too. I just literally took the words out of your mouth and said them at the same time as you. Anyway, point is, our film this week is The Royal Tenenbaum. Steven, give us a synopsis.
Royal Tenenbaums
Oh,
is
wait! Before you get the synopsis, you have to give what is Token?
it's the place where there's at least one black person around the campfire.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty true. They're like that one friend you had from college that was like cool. You just happened to like pair up. Okay, anyway, weird thing.
Yeah.
So give a synopsis for Royal Tenenbaums.
It is Royal Tenenbaums is a film about a high functioning but also highly dysfunctional family with just kids that are geniuses but all have massive weights on their shoulder and parents that are the same.
Basically, a Wes Anderson film. So right there, that gives you like the whole picture of like what it looks like. Um, so for me, this used to be one of my favorite movies. Royal Tenenbaums. I remember I saw it. I don't know if I saw it. I didn't see it in theater. I saw it in college with my roommate. And I remember like being like, this movie is perfection. I love it. I was just like, I love Wes Anderson. So it was really interesting to like see it again. I haven't seen it in years. Um, yeah, I still really love it. I think now watching it to see the where the black folks at, it kind of like it was weird. It made me look at the movie a whole different way. What did you think? When did you see this movie? Have you seen it before? Was this your first time?
Oh, I usually see every Wes Anderson movie at the theater because I like Wes Anderson a lot.
I do too.
And I like his style. He's known for extremely colorful, bright, kind of saturated colors, or sometimes muted colors. But he's also does such a great job with composition
Yes.
and with centering his scenes so that your eye is drawn to certain parts of it, but at the same time the scene as a whole could literally like sit in a picture frame, right? And then of course he's always got these quirky characters that have one thing that's just their obsessive passion and the world doesn't get them or understand them, and there's a lot of nostalgia and like vintage childhood relics that he puts in all his films, and like camps and campfire and tents. He likes that a lot in most of his movies. So and traveling the world too, which is always fun to see. So I think that's why people like his films. Like it I think evokes a certain warm comfort feeling, but that also makes you kind of laugh, and you're never too scared that something really crazy is going to happen because it's just not those type of movies.
It's very it speaks to my hipster ways.
Hmm.
Um and I think what I love about his work is the details. Like, they talk about directors who have like I forgot what we used to call them in college, like they're the auteurs. Is that the right word? Is what
Yeah,
I'm thinking of?
tours. Hmm.
So very specific directors, and I would say he's one. Like Spike Lee is a director like that. Like when you see their films, if you didn't know whose film it was, as soon as you saw it, you know exactly whose film you're watching, and you can never not know when it's a Wes Anderson film. um
100%.
yeah, it's I just love like how he does like his shots, like you said, the composition. I love how he does background on all his characters. It's just great. It's really smart. It's really fun. It's really smart. You get a lot of like backstory without it being in the dialogue. It's like it's just visually it's there. It is in the dialogue, but he makes it snappy, quick.
Ritchie had retired from professional tennis at 26. His last match had been widely discussed in the media.
Your friend Richie, end of letter.
For the past year, he had been traveling alone on an ocean liner called the Côte d'Ivoire and had seen both poles, 5 oceans, the Amazon and the Nile.
It's great. I love Wes Anderson. He's definitely one of my favorite filmmakers. But watching Wes for Black
Uh-huh.
people made me like a little like Wes is not known for having black folks in his he has like, it's weird. He has sometimes diversity, but diversity that doesn't acknowledge that black people need to be a part of the diversity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like his
And
diversity is normally everyone else but black folks. If
yeah,
it is that diverse.
it's interesting. His diversity, I think, is frequently either in the location.
Says the train's lost.
How can a train be lost? It's on rails.
Apparently we took a wrong turn at some point last night. That's crazy.
How far off course are we?
Nobody knows. We haven't located us yet.
Yes.
Like Grand Budapest Hotel or what's the other one?
Are you thinking of his animation?
Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah.
Right, because that's in India, right? So his diversity frequently is either in the location or if there's characters, they're usually secondary characters. They're not leads, right? And they're also usually characters that are witty or funny or like comedic relief, or they like there to assist the protagonist with something. They're like the protagonist's best friend or whatever, or they're the music, like in Life Aquatic, which is the Portuguese dude or Brazilian dude, I think. And so, his that's the extent of it, though. They're not usually part of the primary cast. Yeah. Again, with the exception of like your man in our movie today.
Well, he's still a secondary character.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
So the token, the main token in this film would be the only token with lines in this film and who's a character is played by Danny Glover. It's Henry Sherman.
Yeah.
So his whole character setup is he's in love with Angelica Hudson's character, whose name is Ethel. It's Ethel. And so basically the whole story is moved by Gene Hackman's character finds out that his ex-wife, who he's never really divorced, who he has the 3 kids with, that she is getting together with this black man who we reference him black in so many different ways in this movie. And so he basically kind of pretends like he's about to like die. Like his health isn't great, but he pretends that he's going to die in like 6 weeks and to get back in the house, to get back in the family, because his position is getting moved out. But I want to say this quote though. I want to quote Whoopi Goldberg. So one of my first introductions and one of my favorite introductions to Wes Anderson was Rushmore. So Jason, what's his name? Jason Schwartzman. Is that right?
Schwartzman, yeah.
Schwartzman, who's in like a whole bunch of films. I love him. Who's in a whole bunch of his films. He was on The View, and this is what Whoopi, this is a quote I found when I was doing a little bit of research. Whoopi said, and I'm going to do it as her. She did this in a Valley Girl accent to him. She said, Wes Anderson doesn't like hire like a lot of people of color for his films. So like maybe like Jason, who has been in like 5 of his damn films, could like pass her overly qualified resume onto the Academy Award winning director for her. Like, thanks. So like this was so I don't know if I did that justice. I know Whoopi Goldberg did, just because Whoopi Goldberg is amazing. But basically she was joking. The whole like article is like she was joking, but you could tell she wasn't joking at the same time. He doesn't have black folks in his films. Like he doesn't. All his point of view is from like a white man's point of view. Like seriously.
Usually a white kind of East Coast upper crust kind of elitist, well-educated perspective, right?
Right.
And which is fine, because I identify with some of that with those type of films sometimes, because with the education levels and the pursuits of like just random stuff like archery or sword fighting or whatever, or just their authors or literatures, they read a lot. And like as the writer, a lot of the stuff that his characters are into, I'm like, okay, that's stuff I'm into. I could see myself getting into, so I can kind of relate to what they're doing in the movie. But you're not really gonna directly relate to anybody in the film as a person.
You're never gonna see someone that looks like you. I noticed in this film, I would say it's an A+ on lazy diversity. You get some black folks in the background. Like you get the one other person with like a line that's black is the nurse at towards the very end when he walks up to the hospital to go see his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the
And the
only
security
her
guard.
and the security guard. Also, did you see that security guard's face? He was mugging.
Uh-huh.
He was
not about to
mugging.
let
He
him
was
in.
like, "This is my chance," and he gave it to the camera. His Wes Anderson movie debut, you gonna see him.
You definitely gonna see him. He gonna be like, look, we had a black guy in that movie.
You remember him? He's a security guard. But it's
other
really,
than Danny Glover.
Yeah, it's really disappointing. What did you think of Danny's character?
So I will also say the other token, which was actually really prominent and had as many lines, was Pagoda, right?
Yeah, but we're talking about black tokens.
Yeah, we're talking about black tokens specifically, but the other token Indian character, which is actually in a lot of Wes Anderson films, he likes to have an Indian characters in there.
He does.
And so, but for this one, it was Pagoda, which is a whole other part of the discussion too, with his character and stuff. But
this
Danny,
is blacks in cinema, not people of color in cinema. We acknowledge our brothers and sisters, but the only
I want to acknowledge. I want to give them their dues and acknowledge when
Wes Anderson ain't giving them their dues.
No, well, again, that's a different part of the conversation for sure. But I want to acknowledge that when we do have other people of color pop in, because we got to say what's up to each other, you know. But we look at your face.
I'm just saying,
but I mean, I love Danny Glover's character in this. It's because he's a character you don't see a lot in movies, and he's like the older, educated, respectable, basically grandpa figure, but he wears his little bow tie. He's always buttoned up nice. He dresses just as well as everybody else in the movie, and he's always respectful. And I thought it was actually very interesting because I don't remember this at the end of the movie. I don't remember it when I first watched it or any of the other time I watched it, but they basically, I guess who's the narrator? Alec Baldwin, right? He basically admits that, or says that his character is the mirror of the father. He's like everything the father wasn't.
Yeah, Gene Hackman says that as the last line to him.
Oh, okay. Then yeah.
He's like, I understand why you picked him because he's everything I'm not. Yeah. I will say he was giving me a little bit of humbly Negro.
You think so? Humbly?
Just a little. I think of the scene where they're walking outside and he's like, I'm not like those other men you date. They're much smarter, richer, all of this. And he's like doing that. And I was kind of like,
before he falls in the ditch.
Before he falls in a literal ditch. Like it gave me a little, I'm not like, the mother. It just gave me a little bit of that. And I was like, I could have done without that. Like the only black, that's the thing. Like if you're gonna have black characters, you really just need to be aware of like, to me, like I know it was just like him being a man and being like da-da, but it's like he's the only black character in this. In the sense of like a man black male representation. And like you present him as, and he's actually like achieved in his life from like what you hear, like he's written a book and like he's like a well-rounded man. Yet like you still have him have this like present himself as like, I'm not as good as all the other men you dated, Yeah,
he's just not. And again, I think that is supposed to be him being humble because his eyes, she's like this fantastic woman, and all these guys she dated are like what the Japanese guy's like an engineer or something, whatever he was doing in that. Hey, the other guy's like an Antarctic explorer, some stuff, and all that. So I think, and the other guy was clearly like a Hollywood director or cinematographer or something. So, so I see what you're saying. It definitely gave him the humble Negro vibes, but
give me a little bit of like, oh, white woman, I'm not like all them other men you dated.
I'm not like all them other Negroes.
I'm not all like the other Negroes, the other. No, there wasn't no other Negroes.
No,
They did a flashback to old men.
All them other men.
Other men, none of them were black. So it was the first black man.
Yeah.
And then when she was like, I'm nervous because I just ain't had sex in 12 years.
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't slept with a man in 18 years.
He lit up like a Christmas tree.
No, she said like 18.
18 years. He lit up like a
Yeah.
Christmas tree. He said, okay, well, blow the dust off.
Yeah, he like, we gonna do this.
Yike. He was like Matt James.
Man.
Woman.
Oh my God. Man, he got excited.
Yeah, he got really excited. But I do, Danny Glover, I love Danny Glover. I think he is just like a cool actor. I think I read something and I think it's very fair. He was underutilized.
He was underutilized. He had a good character.
Right.
His character was his character was, it's everything you would want a character to be that's got dimension.
Right.
He was respectable. He had money. He took care of he handled his business, right?
Right.
And what I do like is that he was even there when they're getting married, and Ben Stiller's like, oh, realizing they got that stuff in common. Oh, I'm a widower, whatever too. And he's like, it's okay, son. Like we can move on. We can do, So, but I think they did underutilize them because they're so. And thing is, Wes Anderson's movies always have a huge cast of characters, and of course, there's a central cast and then all the secondary characters. But it would have been interesting to see him in more without being like the and I'm glad they didn't do this, but without being like that character that's actively trying to undermine the father because he knows the father is bad and wants everybody to see that. He kind of just let him do that shit himself, right? And I think if they were to put more of him in there, it's hard for me to see them trying to do any other arc than that. Like undermine the father till you're both embarrassed, and then the woman has to say, I don't want either of you, that type of stuff. Right. So it's interesting. I would have definitely loved to see more of him. I don't know what they would have done with his character though.
I would have liked to see more of his son. You saw his son at the very end of the film. Who's like, he's an army vet, right? Or he's in the army. Is that what we get from his dress? Yeah,
he's in the military. I can't remember what it was. I think it was a white uniform. I guess it was white because it was a wedding.
I don't know. Anyway, but like it would have been nice to have had his son in there more. Yeah, I honestly, I think it's one of those things where it's like, it was great to see Danny Glover like in this type of movie. It kind of reminds me of like these Black actors who are like literally like gems. Like Danny Glover is an acting Black gem, national treasure that only get like one or two parts in these like white writer directors, like for instance, I think of like Angela Bassett in American Horror Story, right?
Which I still haven't seen, but yeah.
But she's like the one, like she's the like national treasure Black actress that like was put in that, right? And he's like brought a couple of more Black actors along the way. I will say that Ryan Murphy's Pieces has made an effort to include more diversity in it, but Angela was kind of like the beginning, and like Gabby, but that's like our first national treasure. But like these are like writers, directors who make it a point to put national treasures in their film, right? So like for instance, that's your Gene Hackman, that's your Angelica Houston, that's your Bill Murray, right?
Yeah.
But then but they don't always bring on other like the national gems of like Black actors on, right? Like Whoopi Goldberg is a national gem. She'd be perfect in a Wes Anderson film. Ryan Murphy, like he just brought in like Angela Bassett, but it's like he has in his other roles, he has like so many national treasures of like white actors, and it just speaks to like, it's crazy because it's like our national treasures are like all even fighting over just like one part. And I think with Danny Glover's, it was great because I don't think Danny Glover been in any other Wes Anderson movies, or was this the only one?
Danny Glover, I don't think he has been in any other Wes Anderson films, but he
but it's like you have Bill Murray who's like repeatedly in all his films. I don't know if Gene Hackman, I'm just saying like it's like the one-off, like you finally had like a Black national treasure in your movie. and then like you don't use them again, which is like a theme of what you do is you recycle your actors, you know,
Yeah.
and it's not that, and I don't think he's introduced any other black actors or none that stand out to me. So it's kind of very disappointing that that was it. And I feel like from Danny, it's like we just like he was great, but we just didn't get a lot of them.
Yeah, and I'm looking through his film list right now. I don't. French Dispatch is about to come out. We'll see if there's anything different with there. But yeah, Moonrise Kingdom, Grand Budapest Hotel, Life Aquatic. Like there are. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Bill Murray has not been Lost in Translation, which is all in Japan. No, that's Bill Murray though. That's not Wes Anderson, right?
So let's talk about that. He has a fascination in this film with other cultures. That's
Yeah.
weird to me. And we've kind of talked about it, but he like makes it a point to have he has Native American culture in there, he has African culture in there. Like it's a big it's something you can't
Jamaican.
look over.
Yeah, he's got her going to the Jamaicans. Yeah, it's interesting. He's almost what's the opposite of a xenophobe? Like he's really apparently really into and interested with other cultures and fascinated by other cultures, but only writes to like his background, I assume, which is interesting.
But it makes it glaring. It makes it glaring that like you see these other cultures, but you don't include people from them except
Yeah.
to it's always like a white person in the midst of like color people. Like it's think about it. There's like when Homegirl's in Jamaica, it's the one white girl amongst all the Jamaican brothers, right?
She was known for her extreme secrecy. For example, none of the Tenenbaums knew she was a smoker, which she had been since the age of 12. Nor were they aware of her first marriage and divorce to a recording artist in Jamaica.
Then it's like you have it's weird,
Yeah, I think
right?
that was purposeful too. Right, that was it had to be purposeful. She was in the middle of the album cover with nothing but black around her. Like, and I took that as like a nod to like, yeah, look at this white girl out like trying to live her little adventurous like
He ain't doing no nod.
life.
You think Wes Anderson was like, let's do a nod to white women who like to try black men?
No, not
Well,
no,
what is
not
it
like
like?
that.
What that's what
I
I'm
think
thinking.
it
What are
was
you referring to?
I just took that whole scene about her love life and background as this white girl that's never found her place, bouncing from culture to culture and dude to dude in each one of those cultures, trying to find her place and still not found it by the end.
Oh, I think that's definitely yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to say her distinctly surrounded by all these black men was like a not well, but because here's the thing, what they did with her in that, they have again at the end where you have Owen Wilson's character, he's surrounded by Native Americans.
American culture, because I feel like in Moonrise Kingdom they go into that a lot too, because it's like about the Boy Scouts basically, and the little boy is a Boy Scout that gets lost on his or runs away on his own, and so there's a lot of that. And Boy Scouts in general steal a lot from Native American culture, right? And so he does that there. I think in I don't remember if there's any other movies, but so I assume with that is just part of his fascination with Native culture, because he puts that in a few of his movies. Trying to think of what else.
Why don't he put some Native Americans in his movies with lines? Or like
That's a
lead
good
part,
question.
or put some Africans.
That's a
You
good
refer to
question.
African artifacts in her room. You
Mhm.
refer to Africa so much in this, yet you only have like one black person. You traveled all these places. Yet you don't have leads from these cultures. Like it feels like the world surrounds white men or white people. That's what it feels like, low key.
The world is a playground.
Yeah, like the world is the white man's playground. That's what it feels like.
Well, I will give him that. It's pretty much how it is in real life too, apparently. At least in Western countries.
I mean,
So,
but
so
yeah, that's for me that there wasn't actually a lot with this movie, like for like token. Like I didn't really have a lot.
I didn't either. And it was mostly like the quotes. Like I remember, and I think everybody does, in the little in that that interaction between
Oh my
Danny
gosh.
Glover and Gene Hackman,
Hackman.
where he just starts trying to get under his skin, and initially slowly starts calling him, like, using slang, like, "Hey, lay it on me, man," using all his street slang and stuff.
I mean, he
Calling
refers
him
to him as like
Coltrane.
Coltrane.
Are you trying to steal my woman?
I beg your pardon.
You heard me, Coltrane.
Coltrane?
What?
Did you just call me Coltrane?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Okay.
He jive turkeys him even before he meets
Yeah.
him. He calls him like old black grizzly bear.
Big. He doesn't say black, which I was like, when I took that, I was like, oh, he called you big old grizzly bear. So I was like, wait, he didn't say black bear though. So what does this mean?
No, it meant black. He meant grizzly bear for
I
black man.
assume just a big scary, right? I was like, I kept thinking, have I heard that before?
No.
Is that part of the lexicon? But everything everything else was very blatant, right? He's like, hey, lay it on me, man. Come on, Coltrane. He's like, oh, you big black buck. You know what you he was like, excuse me. I was waiting for Henry to just knock him out. And I think that's what he was trying to go for, right? But he was goading him, but he didn't fall for it until Angelica Houston came into the room.
Yeah, his whole blackness in it was pointed out as other. Like,
Yeah,
if we
it's
talk
noticed.
about like, if he wasn't black, would that make a difference? What is your opinion?
For the movie or for Gene Hackman's character?
That's the thing, right? If Gene Hackman's character didn't have his interactions with him, would his blackness make a difference?
I think Gene Hackman's character probably wouldn't have. I mean, he clearly wants to be the patriarch of the family anyway, but I think his character would have been far less aggressive if he wasn't black. I think the fact that Danny Glover's character was black made Gene Hackman's character even more in a rush to get his family back, and even more upset that he felt like he was losing the family.
Yeah, I think that for Danny Glover as a character, his blackness isn't. If he wasn't a black guy, I don't think it would matter. Like, on him standing alone. I think the only reason why his blackness mattered in this is because of Gene Hackman's reaction to his blackness.
Yes.
And it was just done blatantly when it was obvious, right? It was just in the terms and stuff he was using against him. Like, his racial remarks was the only way that his blackness was highlighted in this film.
Yeah.
So that's a little disappointing. Because it's
He-
like the only black character, and then he's like other. Like, he's really pointed out as other to like this white.
Well, there's small
social
things
circle.
like the book cover for the book he wrote, right? Is a black family on the cover of the book, right? It's like him, I guess his wife and his son.
Mhm.
And I think there's one other thing, but there's small things like that are kind of acknowledgments that, yeah, this character is black and this is how he's
I
living
mean,
his
that's
life.
not really a big acknowledgement.
I'd say it's big. I said it was small, but those small things. Now, had his character not been, they could have done all the same stuff they did in the movie. Him being black does not directly affect the story, right? They could have just swapped him out with a white guy and had Gene Hackman's character be just as mad. But I think the fact that he is what leads Gene Hackman's character to be even more aggressive in his whole pursuit, right?
I think it would have been smart for them to have actually addressed the racial stuff, because if you think about it, they never address it. They just have him be the butt of it.
Listen, Royal, if you think you can
You
march...
want to talk some jive? I'll talk some jive. I'll talk some jive like you never heard.
Oh, yeah?
Right on!
Sit down.
What? What did you say? I said sit down, I heard you. I want you out of my house. This is not your house. Raggedy ass out. Don't talk semantics with me. No, that's just not you.
What's going on here?
Nothing.
And which is funny because I feel like he may have done that in other movies, like addresses the whole race thing with whatever culture they're in that movie. But this one is a missed opportunity because he legitimately could have had one of the sons, like Ben Stiller's character, who clearly hates the father, It's like he could have very clearly had him be like, you just don't like him because he's black. Or what's the problem, Dad? You don't want us to be led by a good
Yeah.
man? He's, like whatever, just to goad the father into admitting it for sure. But because the father basically says as much himself, just nobody calls him out on it, right?
Yeah. I think that was missed. I think if you're going to have this, there needs to be like some type of resolve to that. Like you basically called him like stereotypical black names the whole film, and then like there's never like a resolve to it or acknowledge that he's like dealing with this racism from this white dude.
Oh yeah, or he, yeah. I mean, he just wraps it up at the end, makes his amends to everybody.
And it's all good.
But it would have been really smart to give him a 2-minute convo acknowledging that, and then you say, okay, yeah. I mean, we already know this, but it's good to hear somebody else other than Gene Royal's character actually like acknowledging, like, hey there, kinfolk. Like he had, it would have been great to
Just
hear somebody else call
something.
him out.
I think it's good for like your black viewers to see resolve in the racial things being brought up. Like he
Yeah.
never like gets to really stand up for himself. He never stands up for himself. Like they almost like got at it with the argument, but like I guess when I say stand up for himself, I mean stand up for himself in the sense of like, hey, ain't no more freaking coal trains gonna happen here or something like
Yeah,
that. Or
yeah,
just
yeah.
like acknowledgement of like acknowledging the fact that like I guess what am I looking for? Standing up towards the racism that's coming.
Yeah.
Because he
Yeah.
stands up to him by finding out like he's lying about his medication and all that, and like tells everyone like he's not really sick, right?
He has the cancer.
No, he doesn't. I know what stomach cancer looks like. I've seen it. And you don't eat 3 cheeseburgers a day with French fries if you got it. The pain is excruciating.
How would you know?
My wife had it.
Yeah.
But like never is there like a resolve or like a like consequences for like him being racist towards this man.
No, there's no resolution with that, which would have been great to acknowledge that with his character.
Yeah.
That would have made it even more clear and fleshed out that he's this black character in this role, like, or in this, trying to get into this family.
Yeah. I mean, I love the movie, but I just didn't have much for it because it's like we're in a white world.
Same, man. It's whiter than white.
Whiter than white. So if there was a movie starring Danny Glover's character, what would it look like? What are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting because his character is quirky, but not in the same way all these other characters are, because the other characters are quirky because they're really flawed. His character actually doesn't seem that flawed, right? So if there was, it would have to be about him and his family, his other family, right? Him and his wife and his son, and one of them would have to be like the quirky one, or it'd be Danny like being the most boring one in a family of like interesting folks, like his son in the military. What's his son doing? Maybe he does something really, really random that you don't hear about in the military often or whatever. Or his wife, we don't know at all what his wife did. We just know she died, right? So, but he's like his character for all intents and purposes is kind of boring, right? He's an accountant, right? He owns his own building. He's telling the son, now look, if we file this as an act of force majeure, you'll be able to recoup the deductible as a rebate. And he's like schooling the son on what to file the accident, which is funny, but you're like, he's just boring as accountant. Like, if anything, I think a movie about him would, and which actually would be fun, would be like maybe his clients that he sees as an accountant and the crazy random shit they get into, until one day like one of them comes in and kind of pulls him into their world by some really random event that they have his name down listed as like in their will, or listed as like the person who paid for it or whatever, and he's like kind of has to get himself out of that. You could make a fun movie with him, but he's the most boring character, so you'd have to acknowledge that.
I mean, it's like if it was a Wes Anderson movie and he was in it, it's going to be good. I just
Yeah,
think
yeah,
all
yeah.
Wes Anderson stuff is so good. But I would love Wes Anderson for you to do a film with a lot of black characters. Let's get a lead black woman in this type style film. It would be great.
Oh, it would be fantastic. A black woman and her daughter. Just and what the thing is, his films have big casts. He does a huge ensemble cast. Like even like it's never just two people, right? So Moonrise Kingdom is the kid, basically about the kid and the girl, like his crush. And then Edward Norton's like the third person you see the most. But like Life Aquatic, it's Bill Murray and Owen Wilson, and then everybody else, and Angelica Houston's in that one too. So, but it would be dope to see him
It'd
pick
be
somebody
so
like
freaking dope.
Zendaya and Whoopi, and it's about like a mother-daughter relationship or mother-granddaughter relationship, I guess, with Whoopi. But and then everybody else, all the other crazy characters, and it could even be that Zendaya is like going to some white preppy boarding school or something, right? And
Yeah, I like is it Zendaya or Zendaya?
actually, I always get it.
Rihanna, who knows? It's okay.
I think it's
fine.
Zendaya, but
I mean, I would love a chocolate girl. I love Zendaya, but she's in everything. Let's
she is.
who are like the chocolate girls that like he could bring. I just feel like Wes Anderson is so creative, so smart. His pieces are so good that like it's like, oh, wouldn't that be nice if you put more black people in it? That would like add to your whole thing. Like, yeah, it felt like kind of lazy diversity, kind of like when we like reference like a Bridesmaids, like a lazy diversity. I would say though,
Very
you know,
lazy.
probably the best thing about it was Danny in his own character. Like to see Danny Glover play this part in a Wes
Oh yeah,
Anderson film.
yeah. It was great. It was
Yeah.
great. You could have. I think you could have replaced Zoe Saldana with Gwen. Why am I drawing such a blank? With
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow's character here. And I could think she could do a character just like that, right? There's so many black actors you could pick that could be great at being quirky and weird and awkward, but also really talented at this one thing or whatever. And I agree. I mean, I love Wes Anderson stuff. I think he's a good director. He tells fun stories that are always super creative. And if he wanted to, he could do it.
Yeah.
We'll see again how French Dispatch ends up.
I don't have much more. Do you have anything else?
No. I'm into dream casting. Maybe we'll have to do our own dream casting a black
Oh
episode
my gosh,
of Wes Anderson.
Steven.
Who would it
That'd
be?
be so
We
dope.
might have to do that and hit him up on the do a dream cast and post it on the IG.
I'm into that. I love
Because
that.
I was looking for like comp films for this, and
Yeah.
I don't think I could find any like primarily black cast film that would be anything close to what like a Wes Anderson movie is.
No. Wes Anderson, you need to go and talk to Spike Lee because Spike does amazing diversity casting.
He does a really good job.
And Wes could do that because I honestly, I think, like I said in the beginning, like Wes or even a Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino does really great diversity casting in his pieces, and you could do better. Wes, you're too good. You're too good for this, bruh. You're too good for this mayonnaise casting. I love the cast, but it's just too mayonnaise, bruh.
Too good to be so stale. Too good to get so
It speaks
stale.
to my hipster life, and I love you, but I need a little bit of hot sauce. I need something, bruh. Something else. But that's pretty much it.
Wow.
Another week of Token. So find us on the IG, find us on the YouTubes, find us on iTunes. You can listen to us there. Hit us up at Blacks in Cinema.
And let us know who you would like to see in a Wes Anderson.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Let us dreamcast the Wes Anderson movie. That'd be dope.
That would be fun. Really fun.
Bye.
Later.